Dr. Joe Congeni with us in studio, 1590 WAKR. Joe, I'm not sure what you have on your list there. I'll let you get to that in a moment. But I saw something come out in the state of Texas last night pertaining to concussions, and I thought of you immediately, where now they are going to require, starting next year, every high school, every time there's a concussion, they are going to require a big report pertaining to how the play, the sport, and they're going to just go into the research on the specific plays, the sports, how it happened, length of time that person out. They have the most, I was reading, high school student athletes of any state in the country. Of course, they're big population and everything. They're going to try to come with some sort of result by filtering this thing down through of changes that they are going to make in high school sports going forward. And they said, like football, soccer, baseball, basketball, they're going to go right down the line and look at these concussion injuries.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we need to do. That's part of all that research that we talk about a lot here. If anyone has big interest today, I'm leading a webinar at noon. It's called Play Like a Champion Today. If you get online, Play Like a Champion Today. That happens to be the Notre Dame mantra. It's a national CYO for coaches and high school, and we're going to talk about concussion at that in detail for a full hour, noon to 1. You can just look it up on that website, a webinar. So there is a lot of talk about that. And of course, amazing to me is the NFL comes out this morning and says, of course, and so galling to me after
Tony
what we
called
talked
it on
about in
Monday.
the summer. Of course. I mean, call it on Sunday. It's
Yes.
ridiculous. This
Doesn't
is
do any
exactly
good.
what we talked about. Yeah, lower the head, crown of the helmet, launch yourself. Those are terms they use. The guy did all of those things. And then the head official gets up and says, he therefore is allowed to be hit in the head. Unbelievable fumbling of the ball. Biggest fumble of the weekend, biggest turnover of all the NFL. They had the biggest turnover by far with what they did. They made their the rules change a joke. It's a total joke what they did this weekend. And Thursday we get a little note from the NFL. Here we are down in the trenches trying to do like what we're doing in the webinar today to do everything we can to make kids safe. And one thing like that on Sunday, total joke by the NFL.
I agree 100%, Joe. I don't know how they could have picked up that flag. And they even went and talked about it and looked at it. That was obvious of everything we talk about. I'm not just saying that just because it was Baker Mayfield and the Browns. No matter what teams are playing, he did his slide. He did what he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
He slid feet first, and this guy came up and led with the crown.
No doubt. It's everything we say, and so extremely frustrating for me.
What else is on your list today?
One other thing I wanted to talk about, because people have been asking me for a couple of weeks, and I know you had a good get-together, so I missed you last week, but for at least 2 weeks this has been percolating. People have trouble understanding the Nick Bosa thing. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, here we go. Now, we've talked about this on your show. Yep. Your audience is the most well-informed audience there is in Ohio. And so we've talked about sports hernia, but it's tricky. It's not easy. You don't hear everybody using the term sports hernia, partly because of the doctor that the Bosas sought out to look for this. So there is a national expert in Philadelphia from the University of Pennsylvania initially by the name of Bill Myers. He's seen so many of the cases of sports hernia. He's been fighting a battle for a decade trying to get rid of the name sports hernia. Athletic pubalgia, abdominal muscle tear. Did you see that name over and over again discussed with the Bosa thing in the first few weeks?
Yes.
But several of the articles, as I read a lot on the Bosa thing, it's truly what everybody else is calling a sports hernia. So these core muscles are involved. So Bill Meyer, in the last couple of years, he's operated on Marshawn Lynch, Justin Verlander, Adrian Peterson, Arian Foster. I mean, a who's who. There's so many athletes. Mm-hmm. And this group of muscles around the core, this is what we call, these are the muscles where you harness your power of all the big muscles for sport. So this is critical. And if these muscles are torn, you just can't play your sport, whether it be the highest risk sports, hockey, soccer, but a lot in football and baseball as well. They help keep the pressure off the arms and legs. You got to have a strong core. And Meyer is really a big believer in stabilizing those muscles and then giving them time to heal. And so whereas some other people doing sports hernia surgery, they are telling their athletes they're back sooner. And early on, some of the reports, Bosa was going to be back in 2 weeks.
Yeah, then we heard the first week of November.
That's
and now
right.
He's basically saying, I'm getting ready for the draft.
No doubt about it. And so Meyer's a big believer in 3 months and getting those muscles at least minimum. But this is that diagnosis of sports hernia. And running and being involved in a sports medicine clinic, we do start to see this in our high school kids. Some of the best soccer players in town have been through our office with this. We see it in football players and stuff. We try to rehab it first and stay away from surgery in the high school area. In the Division I college and the pros, they don't want to wait. They want to go straight to surgery. They lose their power, they lose their core, and they just feel like they can't compete. They're at 70% of 60% of everybody else. So we have a big discussion when we first get started. And there are some surgeons in our area that do the surgery, some more extensive than others. You wonder why in this day and age, why would there be so much variability? So to summarize, sports hernia, very hard to diagnose. It's often a diagnosis of exclusion, and it has multiple things involved. The groin muscles can be involved. The core muscles can be involved. Very difficult to diagnose. Number two, very variable what the treatment is. A lot of people with young athletes are going to say, give it at least 6 months of rehabilitating those core muscles before you use surgery. Other people say, and in higher level athletes, I want to get that surgery done right away. And in Northeast Ohio, we could go in our region to 4 different surgeons, and they all have different times, different ways they fix it. So still an area of a lot of variability. In a high-level person like Bosa, he looked at the clients that have been to Bill Meyer, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, University of Pennsylvania. This guy's done over 600 of these, and he's kind of does a lot of the pros, and he holds people longer. That's the surgery he does, and he's kind of made a career off of seeing abdominal muscle tears. That's what he's trying to get people to call it, rather than sports hernia.
Great stuff. Thanks, Joe. Dr. Joe Congeni, Sports Medicine Center, Akron Children's Hospital, joins us Wednesdays